Alright, here's the captivating narrative from the 2006 crime thriller, The Departed, focusing on the intense, early dynamics between our key players. We open in Boston, some time ago, with a series of grainy images, a time capsule of a city grappling with racial tensions and the stark realities of forced desegregation. A young boy, Colin, fresh off the bus, is confronted by Frank Costello, a powerful mob boss, a man whose words carry the weight of destiny for this young recruit. Frank, with chilling conviction, declares he doesn't want to be a product of his environment. He wants his environment to be a product of him, a mantra that echoes throughout Colin's life. Time leaps forward, and we find Frank in the shadows of an auto shop. A chilling monologue reveals his disdain and the inherent risks that come with dealing with black Chaldees. In essence, one must take what they want, and hate is a necessary ingredient for taking the lead. Meanwhile, from a vantage point overlooking the vast Boston cityscape, we get a sense of the territory up for grabs, a city soon to be gripped in a battle between law and lawlessness. Fast forward 20 years later, and the Irish community, once struggling, now holds significant power. As Frank enters a local luncheonette, he hands over a wad of cash to the owner, a subtle reminder of who really calls the shots. We are introduced to young Colin, sharp and observant, as he gazes out the window at what he's leaving behind. In a haunting exchange, Frank, playing a father figure, probes young Carmen about her period, asserting control even over such intimate aspects of her life. His offer is a deal with a devil. Now, inside a grand church, young William, a budding altar boy, embodies innocence. Frank's voice, laced with cynicism, fills the sacred space. He casts a shadow by claiming that the church is nothing but an illusion that suggests they have each other, transitioning then from holy rites to gritty realities. Frank is in a grimy garage with his adolescent enforcers, a stark contrast to the solemnity just witnessed. His lesson to them is simple, as we're reminded, no one gives it to you, you have to take it. We then are shown the stark and callous reality that is Frank Costello, and what is about to befall some unfortunate souls by the sea. The Knights of Columbus are real headbreakers, true guineas that took over their piece of the city. The reality being someone wasn't honest, and as a result, boom, dead. These individuals are caught unawares by Frankie's men, now corpses on the beach, but all isn't as it seems. There is one survivor, and she is promptly dispatched, adding extra intrigue to this sequence. Back in the auto shop, a stern lesson from the underworld, his world, his rules. It sets up his dominance, especially as he sees William. It will be seen throughout the film, his desire to control those who surround him. Cut again to the beach and these thugs, who are all too willing to do what Frankie asks of them. It is as if they do not realize that they are being watched, and soon, to their dismay, they will be the watchers. We then quickly transition back to the Boston City Hall scene. After so much underworld business, we see the bright halls of government are just as corrupt. This story jumps back and forth, showing how power is taken by the people that want it, regardless of their methods or affiliations. There is a shift now, as we jump to modern day. As he stares out at Boston, Costello asks William if he can name who is in charge. What is this test that Costello is putting on William, and will he pass it? Years have passed, and our narrative finds Colin at the Massachusetts State Police Academy. This segment showcases the formal training received by aspiring law enforcement officers, but our story begins with Colin's introduction in the first episode of the series. A young officer, having his hand shaken by a much older superior. One gets a sense of the deep network of the South Boston families. Meanwhile, on a rooftop, Dignam stands amidst a diverse class. He emphasizes the importance of profiling and predicting criminal behavior. He describes the type of mindsets of the law and of the lawbreakers as he sees it. It is clear that he has lived in the street, has seen these type of guys, and knows how to deal with them. On the other side of the coin, we see William entering into the force and the challenges he will deal with. After what seems like a training montage, we see an all-grown and successful Dignam looking over the newest recruits. Cut quickly to one of the key characters of the film, William Costigan, and we get a sense that not only has he been accepted, but has excelled. What is going on here? Why was he chosen by these leaders to attend this training? Is it because of the history in the family line, or is it something unique to him? And just as quickly as we see him, we are thrust back to the hard, brutal reality of the story. We see Carlin receiving his undercover badge, a twisted parallel to that sacred ceremony. Is it possible that it's all been by design from childhood to make him the person he is today? The last, crucial scene features Carlin meeting Frank at a local convenience store. As tension fills the air, Frank probes Carlin, subtly testing his loyalty and making his intentions terrifyingly explicit. All right, so Costigan asks Barrigan about his last phone call, setting up the house surveillance. It's tense. We know Costigan is in Costello's crew, and he's pushing the envelope. Then, bam. We cut to a frantic escape as the cops are moving in. Costigan scrambles out a basement door where a brutal fight ensues. We pause, and we cut to Costigan at his upscale apartment. He has a lady waiting for him, Madeline. They talk about the previous night, and the light. Cut back to Sullivan and his goons placing a bomb under a car, and boom, they light the whole neighborhood up. Costigan gets picked up while Sullivan and crew run. Cut back to Costigan and Madeline as he eats his breakfast. She leaves the apartment, and the police are about to come in, but a phone call saves him. Costigan makes his way to Madeline's office. He enters to talk about their relationship. There is an honesty, but a suspicion there too. She challenges his honesty, talking about lying to keep an even keel. It turns out Madeline had a parent who was a drunk. He prods her with a cutting tone, then leaves her office, and it cuts to a new setting as she's in a new place. This new place is full of moving boxes and personal possessions. Costigan goes through some letters with notes about his life, clearly something to keep him connected to an old self. Then the door bursts open and it cuts back to Costello, who's not happy to see him. After a fight, they get him and we're transported back to Madeline's office. Back in the kitchen where Costigan, all beat up, is asked if that's really how he's been. And he starts to go off on a rant about the pills she prescribed and what he deserves. Finally, in a moment of calm, he tells her that 2 pills are just the trick. After she gave me those 2 pills. All right, just a taste, I'm good. And then that was too good. This leads us into a tense scene where Sullivan tells him he is doing wrong and gets very direct with the details on him and the undercover cops. Then Costello sets a trap and brings Costigan into the center to talk to his number 2. When the number 2 comes, the police get set and all heck breaks loose. In a flurry, Costigan makes a run for it as a C4 car bomb goes off, and he is forced to flee on foot, beat, disoriented, and very alone to Madeline's office. In her office, he begins to open up about his experiences on the force, but it all starts to come out in a big, uncontrolled rush. She gets ready to let him have it as he pushes too hard on the subject, and she walks away, and this gives him an exit. And that, folks, is where the episode ends. What a ride. All right, so after that tense exchange outside the restaurant, we pick up with Billy surveilling Costello. He's paranoid, and rightly so, suspecting that he's being watched. He relays this intel to Dignam. Costello's got a new crew, moving product, everything's different, and he needs to see Dignam today, not tomorrow. The heat is definitely rising. Meanwhile, Carlin's searching for Costigan in the system, but surprise, surprise, there's no record of him. It's clear to Carlin at this moment that Costello is 1 step ahead, which makes him even more of a threat. Captain Queenan advises Carlin that the best way to find Costello's rat is to follow Costello. But is that sage advice, or a setup? Back on the streets, the tension between Costigan and Queenan is palpable. There's no warmth, no trust, it's pure business, the kind that gets you killed. Carlin directs Barrigan to surveil Queenan, a direct order that's clearly making everyone nervous, and it's not long before things take a turn. In a rapid-fire sequence that really ramps up the suspense, the target, Captain Queenan, comes out of the building with everyone else in tow. Costigan's informant is on the radio stating what is happening. Is he speaking about Captain Queenan, which is his directive, or the people following? He is certainly in close proximity, making it easy for the enemy to follow and identify him. Costigan is also growing in the informant's eyes as well, for which the informant is showing a surprising level of concern as the wheels began to come off. Now, the informant calls in to say that their target has entered a building down by the waterfront. The stakeout begins, with the cars circling the building. Meanwhile, Costigan meets with Queenan on the roof to relay information to the officer in charge. As tension builds, Costigan is definitely starting to crack under the pressure. You know, all that murdering and fucking, he says, and no sons. Then, Queenan delivers the hammer blow. Everything you told me is with your identity. To clear you, it all ends when I'm gone. Uh-oh. He warns to open the file if it's suspected that Costello is out to kill him. This puts a huge target on Queenan's back. The informant then reports to base that Queenan is being tailed, and the police are closing in. Then the unthinkable happens. Queenan is thrown off the roof, as Costigan watches in horror from above, unable to save the man who held all his future in his hands. The hunter has become the hunted. What is going on? A lot is said when we see the police close in to see the cameras point directly on the informant as he passes the building. Back at headquarters, chaos ensues as word gets out. Sullivan is forced to end the surveillance operation after the murder of Queenan. A somber scene follows at Queenan's funeral as the priest reads from the Bible. This scene is overlaid with the soundtrack, providing emotional resonance. In what seems to be a moment of reflection, we see Sullivan in church, maybe contemplating the events which have unfolded. Later, Sullivan's boss delivers some unexpected news. With a somber tone, he relays that Sergeant Dignam has handed in his notice. What is happening? The new captain tells Sullivan that he can get into Costigan's file. It's just a matter of putting in the name. However, this action will not end well. A dark path for both men continues to form as neither one truly trusts the other. As our segment closes, the scene changes as a body hits the ground. One good man is dead, and now it comes to another man as our movie proceeds toward an inevitable ending. What a great conclusion to the story arc. Thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, stay awesome, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content.